Hello and welcome to Touchline, which is the new podcast for Torn by Sports, which we will cover RSL, United States men's national team, and the entire scheme of soccer from here in the United States to international. Um, we have two purposes with this podcast. The first being to cover our local teams, RSL, um, our United States men's national team, and then cover them on an international level, talking about, qualifying different tournaments they'll be playing in, stuff like that. The second thing is during the World Cup, I had tons of people asking questions about, what's this? Why are they doing things this way? Why does FIFA do things this way? And after a talk with you guys, especially Grant from Torn by Sports, we decided that we could also use this podcast for you guys to ask questions. We could answer the questions, and then you guys can learn more of soccer, hopefully become more equipped soccer fans. That way you can have a new understanding and new appreciation for the sport. So what I want to do is first start with RSL. This past week, RSL finally got back into the win column. The big news coming into that game, though, was a day after Team United States was eliminated, that Kyle Beckerman and Nick Rimando was back in Salt Lake, and they both played full 90 minutes for RSL. The great thing having back Kyle Beckerman is he's that defensive midfielder. He allows your entire midfield to play a lot higher up, be a lot more active in the offense, and he also allows your wings on your defense to play higher up because he is so great at getting to the ball and challenging guys to allow his defenders to get back, to allow the rest of his midfield to get back, and also allow those strikers to get back. And so inside the system that Real Salt Lake runs, which is the diamond formation, that is, you need a defensive midfielder that can challenge like that. When you have a guy like Kyle Beckerman, who is the United States men's national team starter, that's what he does. He gets into that midfield, and he is able to disrupt it, do what he wants, shut down passes, and hold guys up long enough to allow the midfield and the rest of the offense to get back and play defense. Because in soccer, you've got to play defense and offense. Everybody plays offense and defense, even though you'll have defenders and strikers, which growing up you're taught strikers score goals, defenders stop goals. In reality, that's true, but soccer's that sport where everybody's either pushing forward or everybody's settling back. If you don't have the ball, you're playing defense. It doesn't matter where the ball is, you're playing defense. And so that's what's nice about having Beckerman back, is he was able to control that midfield, settle Real Salt Lake down, and just control it. With Rimando back, what he allowed you guys to see is a world-class goalie. Right now, Tim Howard is the starter for Team United States. That's without a doubt. After that, I'd say that there is a goalkeeper battle, and I think Nick Rimando is pushing to be that number 2 guy. I wouldn't be surprised in the Gold Cup that's coming up if Nick Rimando doesn't take most of those starts that Howard normally would be taking, only just to keep the wear and tear off of Howard's body. And it'd be great for Nick. Nick's proven to be a world-class goalie. He's played various games. He has started. We'll look real quick. But he has actually appeared in 14 games for the United States, which is huge for him. He's been a 3-time All-Star in the MLS, most valuable player in the MLS Cup. And as you guys remember, he gained a lot of his fame coming from that 2009 season. when he went to that penalty shootout against that star-studded LA Galaxy, and he shut most of them down inside that penalty shootout, and that's when he started getting a lot of the respect that he deserved, and he's proven it ever since then. Which brings me kind of into the next thing I want to talk about is Real Salt Lake. As much as they are now got their midfielder back and their captain, they've got their starting goalkeeper back. It's going to help them improve better, but until Saborio is back, you're going to have problems scoring goals. Yes, Real Salt Lake won, but Real Salt Lake needed 2 penalty kicks to win. Plata has proven that he can be a great man to set up goals and everything like that, but what they need is a Saborio, a guy that can finish goals, a guy that can get in there and disrupt defenses and allow Plata to get him the ball. They have somebody like that in Devin Sandoval. Devin Sandoval and Saborio play both very physical. They both like initiating contact and playing that way. So they're the same player. What we need now is Devin to take that next step. Or what you need is Garcia to take the next step. Garcia's proven to be quick. He's proven to finish goals. He's just lacking consistency, and he's lacking minutes. I wouldn't be surprised just to allow him to get more familiar and with the style of play and everything like that. I wouldn't be surprised that after Saborio's back, that RSL kind of looks at sending Garcia out on a loan just to get him some more minutes. That way when he comes back, him and whoever else they decide to pair him with for the future, he already has that embedded into him to be a finisher. The great thing about it is, with those guys being off, we is allowed to look at the future and see what we have sitting here. What we do have is Luis Gil, who's probably going to be playing in the next World Cup. He has been playing plenty of time for the United States team. He is a great guy to be playing up against and have on your team. He's another one that kind of lacks consistency. He only has 1 start for the senior team, and it was a friendly against South Korea. But he has played since 2008 for the under-17 squad, and he's played in, the U17 World Cup. He's played in the under-20s World Cup, which he had probably one of the greatest looking goals that he's ever scored during that time frame. He's going to be the future. In my opinion, right now he's slotted in to play more of a wing style, but with this team getting a little older with Real Salt Lake, I think they're going to start looking at Luis Gil to be that playmaker inside the middle of the diamond with Javier Morales. Once Javier's ready to either step away from the game or Real decides to let him leave, that's Luis Gil's spot to take. Luis needs to be a little bit more consistent. He needs to learn to play better between the boxes. He's proven that he can finish. He proved it in his RSL debut. A CONCACAF Champions League game, played Cruz Azul. He started the game, and the one play I remember is he chips the ball into the box, and his teammate was in the box. Cruz Azul initiated contact, took the teammate down. I don't even remember who it was, and next thing you know, they got a penalty. Luis proved at that point to me early on that he could be that playmaker, because that's what you need inside. And I'll go into the diamond later in the show, but at the top of the diamond you need a playmaker. You need a guy that can hold up the ball. He can decide which way the offense is going to go. They dictate the offense. They need to be a big-time playmaker. That's Luis's skills to play. But speaking of the future also, Real Salt Lake kind of has this tendency to, they had a saying a while back, and it was, it was trophies, not friendlies. And that was what it was all broken down into, is we're not going to go out and schedule games that we don't need to be scheduling. We are going to schedule, we'll let our schedule games be for the MLS Cup. The other games that get thrown on are going to be for the Open Cup and CONCACAF Champions. We're already exited out of the Open Cup. We didn't qualify for CONCACAF. So what we have right now is a void pretty much in season ticket holders. Season ticket holders get special games a year that's included in with their ticket price. Because the Open Cup game was not on RSL turf, they need to fill one of those voids. So they went out and they signed a match against Club Tijuana. Club Tijuana is a very new team. It's even newer than Real Salt Lake. But they've proven to be very successful. They have already a championship to their name. And as I said with the youth, is they have 5 or 6 United States players that you will probably see in the World Cup coming up in 4 years. The big one being Joe Corona. He's the most recognizable, only because he's appeared for us 11 times, scored 2 goals off of it. He came in to Club Tijuana and was a starter, had great playing time, and all of a sudden his minutes are vanishing. The coach feels that there's another young American prospect, Paul Arriola, who is probably more fit for the future of that team. If you're a soccer fan, you need to get out and kind of need to watch this game. If you're a casual fan, you need to get out and watch this, because if they do start both of those guys, that's your future of the strikers in the Team United States national team. They are 2 kids that will more than likely be playing in Russia in 4 years, only because the depth after Josie here in the next few years is getting kind of old. Josie will be 4 years older, whereas Joe Corona at that time, he will be 28. Arriola is going to be 22 years old. And, we'll have a really young team, but I know the big thing being said was, Klinsmann was going to worry more about getting young guys minutes for this World Cup and getting them accustomed to it, things like that. Rosters change in 4 years. Now I'm taking guesses that Corona, Arriola, and Gill's going to be there. But there's a chance that they're not going to be there. I mean, I'll dive into it here in a little bit, but there was a young kid who came to the United States with his parents. He got citizenship here in the United States. He turned around and started a few times for the United States national team. He was selected early on in his career. I mean, way early. He was drafted when he was 14 years old. #1 pick. And many of you guys know him. It's Freddie Adu. Freddie has kind of fallen from grace, and it's only because he's learned that he can't play versatile. He can't he can't really play any defense so much. He needs to play that one position, so it's kind of hard to move him around. He's a guy that needs tons of possession. He needs to hold the ball. He needs to be playing with the ball. He can't really create space and create shot opportunities for himself, and that's kind of how he's fallen from grace. He doesn't fit the system that we need. And so Freddie's hasn't played a whole lot of Team United States from it. He also hasn't played a whole lot of anywhere because of it. Coaches are kind of baffled on where to put this kid who was, drafted when he was 14 years old. Here it is, over 10 years later. And teams still they see the potential there. They love the potential there. They don't know what to do with it. Real Salt Lake actually took a risk on him and drafted. Well, they didn't draft him. They traded for him from DC United. And they sent off a major allocation. And they also, which is it's money pretty much. They sent money. They sent a goalkeeper and then some future considerations. And in return, we got Freddie Adu. And so in the return, like, 10 years later, we look at the deal and just look at it from that aspect and say, we got screwed. We lost that deal. I think we won that deal because the second part of that trade was we also collected Nick Raimondo from that trade. He's been our starting goalkeeper, playing national team. I think we won that trade. But looking forward, you have, that Club Tijuana match. Guys, if you're able to, get out to it. Real Salt Lake doesn't ever really play friendlies, and so this is going to be something where they're going to test their depth. You probably won't see a whole lot of Beckerman or a whole lot of, Borchers, Grabavoy, Raimondo, guys like that, but you're going to see minutes for your Devin Sandoval, your Garcia, your Luis Gil, Sebastian Vasquez. Those guys are going to see minutes, and that's going to show you a future of what that looks like. And you're also going to see a lot of young United States men's national team talent, and you can kind of see where the future of our country's team is going, and then start making assumptions about where you think we're going to fit in. And then as we go forward, you can look at, trying to be that model after a team. For 4 years now, the battle cry for Team United States has been, we want to be just like Spain. You don't. The team you want to be like is Germany. Germany and Brazil are both kind of that same way. Because they reload. What they go ahead and do is they have a style of play they want to play. We need a midfielder that can do this. We need defenders that can do this. We need a striker that can do this. We need wings that can do this. So they go out and they get these guys. They're different body types. They're different style of players, but they fit the mold. They pretty much go out and find the puzzle pieces to the puzzle, put the puzzle together, and throw it on the international stage. I think it proved today with the beatdown they give Brazil that that model of consistency works. I'm not saying that if they had Neymar that it would have been exactly the same way, but you can't tell me Neymar controls a 6-goal swing. I think Germany probably still wins that game. I think they win dominantly like they did. It's probably not going to be 7-1, but because of the way it has been, that's the team we kind of need to be looking towards. The beauty of it all is we have a guy who's coached in that system and played in that system in Klinsmann who will be building this team in that model. going back to when he was first hired, I didn't like the hiring. I still kind of don't like the hiring, but I'm supportive of the hiring. I honestly thought that Jason Kreis should have been hired to that position. Jason took a team that doesn't have the highest caps and can't spend a whole lot of money, and he brought them a championship, and he's kept them consistent year after year after year by just going out and finding the right players for his system. He took risks on unknown guys. He traded for guys that fallen out of grace in their teams and wasn't getting a whole lot of minutes, like Plata. Brought him to Salt Lake. Plata's blown it up now. So that's a team we kind of need to be modeling ourselves after. And it's not a bad team to be modeling yourself after. This is years now that they have been, dominant. I mean, they've been to the World Cup 18 times. They've made it to the semifinals 13 of those times. They do not rebuild. They just reload. They are a machine. That's what we need to build upon. They play the ultimate team sport. As you can see in the NBA championship, the Spurs won because they played team ball. They don't depend on a single player like Brazil relies on Neymar, and Argentina is going to rely on Messi, because that's not their style. It's a team, and they control it. I know there's been a whole lot of criticism that the United States coach decided not to let Beckerman play in the last game. I honestly don't know for the life of me why that went down the way that it did. I mean, it's kind of crazy. My personal opinion is that he should have played, only because Belgium, from what I saw, they love to play physical. Beckerman loves to play physical. None of the teams that they played in those group stages would play physical with them, so they kind of kept games close, but after a while their physicality wore down teams and then beat them up and would put away a late goal on them. The United States kind of proved that they could run with them. I think if they would have had a Beckerman in the middle, the results might have been different, only because he could play physical with them. I'm not entirely sure why Klinsmann did what he did. It's kind of frustrating because, Beckerman was, in my opinion, the man of the tournament for the United States. He was controlling that midfield. He was being additional defender, essentially, especially after Josie went down. He was allowing people to play forward a lot more, allowing a lot more of his midfielders to play on offense and help Clint Dempsey out with that. So I'm not entirely sure why it went down the way it did. I haven't ever heard any reason why. I think it was a stupid decision. It kind of helped us out because Beckerman was able to come back and play 90 minutes for us. But in the grand scheme of things, I'd rather have Beckerman playing in Brazil tomorrow or today than sitting back with RSL, honestly. Another question I was asked was, why is it so important to win the World Cup? The World Cup it's the World Series, it's the Super Bowl, it's the NBA championship, but it's the BCS championship, but it's all those at a worldwide level. So it's like, say the Super Bowl. I mean, realistically, you can't pull this off because the United States is going to win it every time, because 99% of the talent for football comes from the United States. But what you do have is, if you took the Super Bowl and put it at a worldwide level, Spain's able to put a team together. Brazil's able to put a team together. Germany, England, Ireland, South Korea, North Korea. There's 150 something FIFA regulated teams. They're all allowed to put one football team together, and you go play for a title every 4 years. The World Cup means that you are the best soccer team in the world. It is essentially the holy grail of the World Cup. It is also a very big political piece. The World Cup trophy, prior to the one that they have now, actually was stolen. Nobody kind of knows where it is, but there's beliefs that different countries stole it because, well, what would happen is the team that won the World Cup would receive it from the previous winner, and then when the next team won, they'd hand it off to them, and it'd just keep going around. The very last time they decided to hold that trophy as the official trophy, somebody stole it. Nobody can find the trophy. Nobody can. I mean, there's replicas of it out there, but nobody knows if those are the real one. I mean, there's beliefs that Brazil stole it because they didn't want to have to give it up or anything like that, and just refused to give it up. I mean, it's kind of like the man on the moon. There's different scenarios that, oh, this happened, that happened. You kind of just roll with it. Nobody really knows. There's some great documentaries on it if you want to know more about it. It's pretty cool to read up on if you honestly have the time. And let's see, the last question I was asked is, what is the diamond formation? And I'm going to kind of break that up into a bigger part question. In soccer, there's formations, and generally the formations are called by numbers. The most common one is 4-4-2 or 4-3-3. And what it means is, and you got to imagine that these guys are in a straight line. So you'll have 4 defenders, 4 midfielders, 2 strikers, just going up. Or you have 4 defenders, 3 midfields, 3 strikers. It has to equal 10 because you're only allowed 11 guys on pitch at one time. One of them has to be your goalie. So you're allowed 10 men to put them in any formation that you want. There's a lot of crazy ones. There's, 5-5-1s. You imagine it, it's there. If it's not there, you could probably put it together and throw it out there. The one that RSL runs, Team United States tried to run it a whole lot. I thought they had some success with it, only because they had a defensive midfielder and an offensive playmaker in Kyle Beckerman and Michael Bradley, is what's called the diamond. And what you got to imagine is you have your 4 defenders, and then you'll have, essentially it's actually called a 4-1-2-1-2. And what it is your 4 defenders, then you have a defensive mid, then you have 2 wings, an offensive mid, and 2 strikers. It's easier just to call it the diamond formation. What it does is, I think it's one of the best formations to be running as long as you have the players for it. You need that Kyle Beckerman-like player who can play back and essentially be a 5th defender. That allows your 2 wings to play forward, and it allows your 2 defensive wings to play forward, being more involved in the offense. It also allows you in the diamond, because instead of everybody being on a flat line, you're spread out like a diamond. So you're spread out, you're spread in the field, so you're not playing the middle of the field, you're playing the entire field. You need very physical, fit guys that can run in this system. And then what you need up top is who we have in Javier Morales, and on the national team schedule, who we have in Michael Bradley, who plays forward. And controls that offense. He, he gets forward. He plays essentially as a third striker that sits back. He gets back. He helps in the midfield. He defends in the midfield. He's a midfielder, but he is essentially a third striker. He's supposed to get it up there. Strikers play the same positions on that in the diamond and everything. It allows your defensive wings, like I said, to play more further up. They can run the sideline because as you're spreading the field, you're creating big holes. So as your defensive wings can get up higher, that allows your wing guy in the midfield to slide in and play some of those holes. If you ever watch Real Salt Lake play, Tony Beltran is a great example of a defensive player on the wing who, when the Real gets on counters or starts playing offense, he'll be up there playing offense with them. And that's because a guy like Kyle Beckerman allows them to set back. It allows a guy like Javier Morales to allow him to set in and play more, because a lot of these teams kind of don't spread the field like that. That's where the Diamonds' perks is with the Kyle Beckerman, because when they start shooting back on counters, the ball's kind of all channeled down into the middle of the pitch on the way back, and Beckerman's allowed to be there, be in the way, pretty much be disruptive, allow everybody to get back from the offense. Something really quick I actually found before I started this. It's kind of fun to go back and look at, guys that, go back and look at a draft and just see what's coming in the future for the draft. Or go back and look at a draft that has passed, 5, 6, 7 years later, and look at it and be like, wow, they selected that guy when there's this guy still still available and stuff like that. And so, as I was researching about Freddie Adu, Freddie was selected first overall. At the time, there was 10 teams, and there was 6 rounds, so there were 60 selections that essentially were made. And as I went through and I looked at it, so you had Freddie Adu that was selected first overall. With the 8th pick, you had Clint Dempsey. With the 12th pick, you had who's currently playing for Real Salt Lake and Chris Wingert. You also had, with the 14th pick, Ned Grabavoy, who plays for Real Salt Lake. 28th pick, you had Kari Stevenson, who played for Real Salt Lake recently. I think the biggest one that stood out to me is selected 36 overall was Michael Bradley. And it's it's kind of fun to go back and look at stuff like that, and just be like, that team took a chance on a 14-year-old kid who's now running out of options and has no clue what he's doing and has essentially nowhere to go in the sporting world unless he can figure out how to be a better defender and play better. And that kind of takes me into my last. Well, I actually got 2 topics because Blaine keeps asking questions. So I'll answer his real quick. He asked how many more years does Beckerman really have? Let's see, Beckerman is 32 years old, so the next time he plays, he will be 36 in the World Cup. At the same time, we just had Clint Dempsey play. He's 31, so he's a little bit younger. This is probably their last World Cup. It's not common for guys to play past, the age of 30 in the World Cup. 32 is kind of that cutoff date. But there's hope for those two, only because Klaus from Germany, who's now the all-time leading scorer for the World Cup, he is 36 right now. and still putting together, a dominant display. He's been playing outstanding, and he's got crazy, crazy records to his name. But that's just one guy. I would say this is probably Beckerman's last time starting in the World Cup, which is kind of sad because this was his first World Cup. It's also going to be his last, I'd say, within the next. Generally, when guys retire from international competition, they only play for clubs for another 4 or 5 years. So I'm going to guess that Beckerman's time, I'd say, give it about 5 years, and he probably will either not be the player he once was starting for somebody, or he might just be out of the sport, maybe being a coach or an assistant somewhere. So I'd say that you only have about 5 more years with Beckerman, which is sad, because he's been one of the all-time great players in Real Salt Lake history. I've loved watching him play. He's been that ultimate, step in, be the leader from day one. And he's just been that great guy that this team's needed. He's going to be somebody that's hard to replace. And then the last thing I wanted to do was give a quick shout out to, it's been thrown all over Twitter under the hashtag #SaveClaudia, which a team administrator, Sal Perez of Real Salt Lake, has a niece who suffers from a rare disease. Her name's Claudia Perez. And so the Real Salt Lake family has been putting together this whole big, there's a golf tournament on August 4th, there's a 5K walk run, there's motorcycle rally, all kinds of things going on this Saturday. Get out there, get around some of those people, support the Real Salt Lake family as they support one of their own. And you know what? Talk soccer with some of these guys. The best way to learn soccer is to be talking with people about soccer. And so if you need more information, search the hashtags #SaveClaudia and just get involved, guys. Like I said early on in the podcast, that the entire point of this is to have you guys, ask questions. I'll try to answer them the best I can. It can be simple questions as in, what's the role of a striker? What's the difference between a striker and a forward? Or something like that. Or you can go crazy in depth, whatever. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. But the more that you guys ask, the more that I can teach to you guys. If you're somebody, even if you're very new to the sport, that wants to, come on, maybe ask questions or give your opinion on soccer, and have me answer some questions that way, let me know. Follow @touchline_TBS, send questions there, or send them to my account at A24Brett. The earlier you can get them on, the easier it is for me to find answers and send it out to you guys, get you answers. If it's a quick question like a yes, no, I might just answer it over Twitter. But if it's something like the Sports Brothers have been asking me, Blaine Jacobs been asking me, I'm going to pull them onto the show just so that everybody can learn. So yeah, that's all I have for this week. If you guys want to come on, let me know. I'll get you guys on the best I can. If not, send me questions, and then we'll start looking forward to next week's show. One of the things I want to get into is the MLS has new teams coming in, starting here within the next few years. So the sport's growing. the sad thing about it is we're about to go into a real sticky situation that is called trying to remember the exact term for it. It's pretty much a draft is what it is. And what happens is it's called an expansion draft is what it is. And what happens is they'll bring in all the new teams from that year, and each team, and the number changes from time to time, but when Real joined, MLS teams were allowed to protect 12 players. All your developmental guys are excluded, and all your designated your DP players are excluded, and so you're only allowed to protect 12 guys, and then you have your exempt guys, and you have to expose people. Guys that are exposed is pretty much guys that are on your team that you sit there and you hope they don't take. They're given generally around 10 picks to just pull from whoever they want from your teams that you haven't protected. Real Salt Lake's first ever pick was Andy Williams. We've seen what that's turned into. But as you go through, a lot of these times, these expansion drafts are very hit or miss. And so that's something I want to get into next week. I'm hoping to get a guest on that can explain it a lot better and the concepts behind all that. So until next time, send in your questions and hope you enjoy the game.